Hey guys, welcome to this week's Between Sundays. So we're recording this video on June 20th, 2025. And June is a really big deal for us. And 25 years ago, our lives changed drastically. Tell the people why.
At this point, 25 years ago, I had already been in the hospital for like 20 days. I was expecting the birth of our first and only child, Taylor, and I had just been I'd started out in Boonville Hospital and ended up in Tupelo Hospital really quickly, and I had just been kind of hanging out there at the hospital in my room, just patiently waiting.
That's right. This is before I was a preacher. I was working on cars. She was working at a pharmacy in Corinth, Mississippi, and we found out she had preeclampsia or toxemia. And so for 20 days, by this point, she'd been in the hospital. But 25 years ago, they came in and said, "Okay, it's time to have the baby." And her daughter was 8 weeks early. She only weighed 3 pounds 2 ounces. And after Taylor was born that day, the doctor came by and said, "Okay, April's body should reset soon, and everything, the elevated blood pressure, everything should go down and get back to normal." Well, that really wasn't the case, though. So on that Tuesday that her daughter was born, June 20th, 2000, still 2 days later, the blood pressure really hadn't reset yet. Do you remember anything about those days?
I don't. The only thing I remember is a lady that came in to give me a bath there in the bed. Just a lovely memory to have. And that was just a few minutes before I had the seizures. And that's the only thing I remember from that time period.
Yeah, so
I went to surgery, and then I didn't remember anything except that. And
that's right. So she was in a room because of elevated blood pressure. The TV couldn't be on. There were no windows in the room. The lights were out. So we called it the Bat Cave. And so we were sitting in a dark room, and it had been just a little bit after that lady had helped April, and maybe an hour or so later, and then I heard her saying something, and her hands were moving, and I realized she was having a seizure. So I went out in the hallway, and we were at the North Mississippi Medical Center, or actually the Women's Center in Tupelo, and went out to the hallway and I said, "My wife is having a seizure." And then medical personnel flooded the room, and you had 2 really bad seizures that day. That was on June 22nd.
there were long, kind of violent seizures.
Yeah.
And so I don't remember it.
And she bit the end of her tongue, and the blood went down into her lungs and set up double pneumonia. And we went from the Women's Hospital in Tupelo to the North Mississippi Medical Center, ICU.
The big hospital.
Yeah, the big hospital, the big house. And so we went there on a Thursday, and then she was in a coma until Sunday. So for 3 days, she was out of it. Man, we didn't know what was going to happen. The doctors didn't know what was going to happen. It was really, really rough. And at this point, when she had the seizures, her little girl was 2 days old. By the time April woke up out of the coma, her little girl was 5 days old. And I remember going back and forth from the big hospital, back over to the Women's Center to give her little girl her bottle. She had a feeding tube, and to give her a bottle and all that kind of stuff. She was tiny. And so that's something that we went through that drastically shaped our lives. And then on that Sunday, my aunt, my dad's sister Donna, had come down to the hospital, and she and her husband had taken me out to eat. And whenever we came back from eating, I remember them saying, "April is awake, April is awake." And
of course he wouldn't be there when I finally woke up.
Of course.
I don't remember it, so it doesn't matter.
And so when I went back there, the left side of your body didn't work. Your left side of your face was still paralyzed. Your left arm didn't move. Your left foot didn't work. Your left leg didn't work, nothing like that. And then you stayed in the hospital like another week, I guess, from that point. And then when you came home, you were still in a wheelchair, and they couldn't walk, and they couldn't use your left arm.
And this whole time, Taylor's in the ICU.
In ICU.
The NICU.
Yeah, so. at the Women's Center.
Yeah.
And then finally, a couple days after we got home, then you were able to walk. The Lord restored the function of your left side, and so you were able to use your hand, your foot, and all that kind of stuff. And then our daughter stayed in the hospital, I think like 17 days she was there, but we got to bring her home. I think she was a whopping 4 pounds. Yeah. Wasn't she 4 pounds?
When she came home, yes. She weighed 3.2 when she was born. She lost down to 213, and then she came home and she was 4 pounds and something. Back then, typically, a child can't hold their body temperature until they're 5 pounds. But she was a good several ounces away from that, but was able to do that, so she was able to come home.
Yeah.
And then that very next Sunday, we took her to church.
We took her to church.
She didn't have any
Absolutely.
vaccines, but
None of
we
the
took her to
shots,
church
nothing
anyway.
like that. We know
She
the Lord
survived.
really blessed.
We were
It's,
very happy she was alive and I was alive. And so,
Yeah, and it's times like that whenever you're going through those situations, you don't exactly understand how God is going to use those to direct your path, direct your life. That was before I had surrendered to the ministry. Through all of that, God's call was really renewed in my life. And so then just a few months later, fast forward from June to October, that's when I surrendered to the ministry, and God set us on a path that would have never ever dreamed.
and what kind of glossed over some of the details because it was financially, it was draining, and it was emotionally draining, and there was a lot of other things that happened, and it was not a fun experience, and it was really sad when I had always been sad about the fact that Taylor was basically, she was a week old before I saw her. Not basically, she was. And but in the grand scheme of things, she doesn't remember, and I don't remember most of it, and so it doesn't really matter. Everybody survived, and we were fine, and God took care of us. So anyway,
That's right.
It was a very interesting time.
Guys, it's good seeing you. We'll see you again next week.